I live in Hunsack, but I know this neighborhood really well too. I've lived here a lot.
Yeah. My partner's from
Oh, nice.
when her mom was in town. I lived there all the time.
I love it now. My partner has been living there for ages now, so I got to know it, and I was like, this thing was so far, and now I'm like, keep thinking it's far. Don't bring up the prices. It's not far at all. It's on the water. I'm on the metro line. I just took the 5 down. Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, I used to love Japan. We go up there. It's like
it's the Kremlin.
Yeah, it's on the highway.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Yeah,
I feel like the housing prices really changed.
But it's also like I'm from Montreal.
Yeah.
But a lot of the Anglo experience is more centered, and they're like everywhere I've ever lived is as far as my English friends. And then until it becomes cool, and then they're like I lived in near the Johnson Market in the early 2000s, and everyone was like, what are you doing?
Right. Yeah. I lived up here in the early 90s.
Oh.
Yeah,
I live at Bayonne.
I love it.
I'm gonna try to diminish the lag and Philpot, but it's a bit of a tough though because this is an honorarium that requires a lot of my partner and I all work together. I'm gonna give them up when I decide to par hasard.
Sure, I guess I should probably sit down too.
Or I could see that's how far behind it is. It doesn't matter because I got another place. Maybe I could just try to I couldn't try to move the camera up if you were to stand.
Because you can move it like that. Why not?
It's also the easiest thing to understand because Oh, okay.
There you are. A monumental day.
Okay, that's fine. The people who are young, we can tell them again.
I'm getting really tired. I'm really tired. It seems loud, but
You want to Europe? John. This is that's going to produce a Leila Marshall's new fiction novel. My brother John.
Oh, pretty nice.
And Lisa who is also just a piece of fiction. I have a hard time getting from because Lisa translated
my brother said it was a long, but it's a gorgeous book. But now you're coming to this branches, right? Well, he has extremely highbrow research narration, and then the speakers are definitely speaking older French. That time. But it's my
And it also has
like a webcam.
So it's pretty strong.
No, it's a super strong camera that small and not that expensive. Oh, he researched everything. And his engineer friends are trying. Like first chapter is very exciting. The first chapter, the one that you're in, is like very intense. It's like
Wave to the camera.
It's never going to be the same. You have to let the Quebecois culture come through in different ways. So you think about French, and then you think about class and time, and also the children. The whole class there is. And that's very, very like narrative. It's a challenge. You feel targeted. He has been criticized for his reasons for not having enough time. Too sad. There used to be more fantastic. Like fun stuff happening. I think he's I've loved his work since way before. Not knowing we'll be together. But I'll be sure to and he had really good There are really good scenes in the book that are difficult and fun I personally have been back to
Oh no.
Il a parlé des restaurants, c'est encore ça.
These two young men must have just go ahead.
I've gone a week before, and she's okay. Spiritually robust, she's not tired. Maybe not. She's tired. I was like, oh, I think it's time to go. And I said, oh, in a week, because I've been Friday or Saturday, and I heard that really sad. So I thought, oh, I'm not going to go on the weekend. And then I ended up on Tuesday.
Make sure
If I'm walking here, this will get picked up.
I've got your belly button there. But I think there's so much envy. There's so much
She's expecting more people.
So this microphone will not be bypassed by the lapel recorder. It has its own permanent channel. Maybe we should cut it off. I'll have to toggle it until the last question. It'll be quiet. Yeah, they both work.
They both work.
Yeah.
Okay, great. But I'm going to borrow one.
Did it move?
Okay.
Do you want to stand there? Oh, wait, but are you going to speak before?
Yeah, I'm going to speak before.
Yeah.
Where shall I speak over here?
I don't know, wherever you like. I just
Because
need to
otherwise
know.
I don't want to show you my belly button.
No, I put it up.
Okay. Because I want to speak to people.
Okay. Now I've got your head. I've got your head. Now you just stepped out of the picture.
Okay. Hello tout le monde. Would you like to come and sit down, please? If there's room to sit. Alors, bonsoir, je m'appelle Robin Philpot, je suis éditeur de Baraka Books. Ce soir, ça va se passer surtout en anglais, mais n'hésitez pas à poser vos questions en français et même en chinois, parce qu'on est capable de répondre à ça. I want to first start by thanking Julie from this beautiful bookstore, librairie N'était-ce pas l'été, for welcoming us here. We had a lunch last week too, and this is the best bookstore in this part of the city. And I also would like to thank Jan Jorgensen, who graciously is live streaming this. And I want to welcome the people who are listening to this on YouTube online. And as I mentioned in an earlier email, if you have questions or comments, you mail them to robin@barakabooks.com, and we'll make sure that Lili gets them. So, and before we start, I want to say a word about somebody who left us, Blossom Tom, who was our fiction editor at Baraka Books for the last couple of years, and she worked hard on many books, and she came down with a cancer in January and died in April. And it is extremely a real loss for us, a personal loss. And she worked so hard on a number of books, and in particular on Dear Haider, and worked with Lili. And I think Lili wants to say something before we start the program.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming. And yes, about my editor Blossom, it was great working with her, and we met multiple times, we talked, and she always championed my book since the beginning. So it's quite a tragedy that she passed so young, but we'll remember her. Yes.
A launch like this is really a moment to celebrate the author, celebrate the book. And this is a first novel. For us, it's important, a first novel. And it touches on issues that concern us at Baraka Books. Like that's at Baraka Books, we try and do books that have a social, political message, or that help people understand what's happening in the world today. And this book is a perfect example. What starts out as a coming of age, quite a young person coming of age from a different culture, meeting another young man who comes from another culture, another religion, and a coming of age story. And then it moves really fast and has a very surprising finish. And I won't go any further to describe it, because we have Andrea Legros, who is somebody who has worked very much with people with mental health, who knows Lili, who's read the book, and who's going to ask questions. And Lili will answer these questions. And then we will be very glad to have comments and questions from you. And so I'll now pass it over to Lili and to Andrea Legros.
Thank you very much. So we're both very nervous up here. I always said it's performance anxiety. I was going to say anxiety performance. But I reminded Lili there are no bad interviewees. There are only bad interviewers. So I'll take complete responsibility here. So she just has to go along with me. Well, Lili, let's start from the beginning. What I'd like to know is, where did you first get the idea to write a book? Is this something that was long in the making, or?
Well, yes, actually, as many of you know, I had a mental health crisis in 2014, and I ended up in the hospital, and then I was recovering at home, and I was feeling depressed. I was not doing well, and I was wondering, what can I do with my life? And then suddenly one day I woke up, and a fully formed story came into my head, and I was thinking, oh, okay. And then the story started nagging me. You should write it. You should write it. And I was thinking, what should I do with it? Because I was also thinking a lot, like making sense of what happened to me, trying to understand, for myself, and also for other people in my life who want to know, like what happened, right? So I thought, let's create something that's fictionalized, but makes even more sense than life itself, for me to really figure out, how to tell the story. And this is how the story came to be.
Okay, that's the story. So you would say that then your inspiration was actually your illness.
In a sense, yeah.
So you've never had anything before that, in your younger years before the illness?
Well, of course, I always liked writing. I think, in elementary school, my best friend's mother gave me a journal for my 8-year-old birthday. A journal, with those locks on it for the little kids. So, so I've been writing in a form or another since that time. So of course I loved writing, but I never really thought I could write a full book or a complete story.
So tell us more about this creative process. So you're sitting there, you want to write a book. Where do you go from there? What's the creative process?
Yeah, so I mean, at some point I just decided I'm going to sit down and write a book. So I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I reached 10,000 words. I'm like, this is not going anywhere. I'm rambling. So I thought, what do I do? So I thought, let's start with a plan. So I started planning, because I'm a planner. I'm like, list. So I went and wrote more lists. I listed all the chapters I wanted to write, what goes into each chapter, 5 to 7 bullet points, and then I was like, okay, I think I know what to do now. And I was lucky, between my undergrad and my grad school time, I had about a semester off. So I decided, okay, I'll just spend this time to write. So I sat down and I wrote most of the first draft in about a month and a half, I would say. Yeah, and then I had a first draft.
A month and a half. So from the planning to the writing of the first draft, a month and a half, or
not including the planning.
Okay, how long was the planning process?
A few days, but it's a lot of thinking before that.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So it stayed more at that. So did you actually read up on planning and how to write a book?
A little bit, but mostly it was like, I'll take whatever is useful and I'll do with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were your feelings throughout this creative process? So how was it on the emotional side?
Yeah, well, it's hard, because you're living what your character is living. I really just dived into it. Like I just went like deep down into the story. And at my parents' house, they had this like little studio upstairs of my mom with like a lot of flowers there. So I just sat down in that room and like every day I just wrote. And I was more in the story than in the room itself. And I was really living the story while writing it. It was very intense, but it's quite an experience.
So when you're reliving this emotionally, what is this doing to you?
I'm not trying to think of what he does to me. I try to think of what he does to the character and like redirect it into the story right away.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So who or what helped you along this process?
Yeah. So this is where I give a big shout out to my friend Alexandra, who is watching the live stream. So I wrote that first draft, but I wasn't super happy with it, and I'm not a professional writer. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to edit, so I just let it sit in a metaphorical drawer in my computer for 5 years, I think. Yeah. And then I was talking to my friend Alexandra, and I told her, I have this book sitting there. She's like, oh, I work as a medical writer and editor, let's go over the book together. So it was the pandemic, so we sat down on Zoom every Sunday, and we went through about 2-3 chapters at a time, and it took 4 months, but really she helped me make this book a lot better. So it was great. Yeah. And then I was able to pitch the book to publishers, and the rest is history.
Okay. So you would say that was your main support?
Yeah.
So you can thank the pandemic too in a certain way.
I wouldn't go that far.
Ça va bien aller. No. Ça va bien aller. Let's talk about the pacing of your book. Phil came on to it earlier because of course I read it and was amazed by the pacing. This company, it starts out, it's at a leisurely pace. It's in-depth detail and everything. And then it culminates into this frantic beat. And in the last 40 pages, there's an explosion there. So how do you explain this?
Well, it's deliberate, and I kind of like books that do that have like a crazy, intense, or surprising ending. So I deliberately wrote it that way. It also makes sense, the story, right? At first you want to put the setting of explain to people everything that they needed to know to understand the book. And then you go into the story, and then it just goes until boom, you reach the end.
You reach it, okay. So that was deliberate, and it ends, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, about what we can add on or not. Let's talk a little bit, because in the book you get a glimpse of your personality throughout. We're getting these glimpses and different things come up. And one thing is the perfectionism. Your perfectionism seems to seep through. So how did that help or hinder your writing process and the storyline?
Well, I am a perfectionist, but even more than that, I think I have several mental health conditions, like anxiety and other things. And so yes, definitely it impacts me as a person, my writing, everything, right? In terms of perfectionism and anxiety, I think I got it from my mom.
Il va falloir vous interviewer après.
Yeah, but I mean, it's nerve-wracking when you're writing, like, I stayed up sometimes searching for the word to write, and then at like 3 a.m. I go on my computer and change a word, so that does happen, but maybe it helped, I don't know. But also, anxiety, a lot of it throughout the publication process. I was thinking, will so-and-so like this part? Will so-and-so hate me for writing that? I was very worried sometimes. And, also, like, will people judge me? What will people think? Will it be well received? I mean, a lot going on in my mind. And also, some depression too, right? And I have very limited energy, and maybe I have a 3-4 good hour in a day, and then I have to cook for myself and take a shower and also write and also do my PhD. So it becomes a lot, actually. Yeah, so I mean, that I manage, and in a way, these things also inspire me, right? It helps me see the world in a different light. I focus on what matters. I focus on good relationship with people. And, I focus on the story, the overall narrative that I can, talk about. So, in a way, yeah, it inspires me, but it also hinders me. I don't know whether that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And throughout your story, I mean, in the storyline itself, is that something that you felt in your story? You wanted to let us see this, that this anxiety, this perfectionism helps and hinders you as you go along in the storyline with your character?
Yeah, I think so. I think the character Liz, she, on one hand, she's trying to live her life and grow up as a mature woman, but also, she faces, those struggles along the way, and yeah, I try to portray it candidly as I can.
Mm-hmm. I think you have a few excerpts that you would like to read to us, so we're going to let Lili do that, and then there's some questions that relate, and then we'll open up afterwards to the audience.
But my book is over there. Can someone grab it for me? Thank you. Yeah, so I chose 4 passages to share with all of you, maybe like a 15-20 minute reading. I wanted to share different things of what happens in the stories to show different aspects of the story. I'll start with the first passage where it's a love story too. So the first part, showcases the love part. Liz, the protagonist, and Haider have met in Germany on an internship, and they made a group of friends who are all interns that summer. And they all went on a trip to the Netherlands, and so they're in the Netherlands, and they find themselves on the beach on the North Sea one evening. And so Haider says, "It's been a while since I've been able to run on a beach," Haider said. "You guys watch my hoodie and stuff. I'll be back soon." He left barefoot and was soon lost in the distance. Wendy was sitting beside me, and David and Will were across from us. I looked at them. Then I looked at Haider's silhouette disappearing in the distance. I felt a strange longing, so I stood up and started moving in his direction. The sun was glaring golden in the middle of the North Sea to my left, making the water glitter like a handful of scattered diamonds. The sky stretched from yellow to pink to purple. The fancy hotels on my right, facing the ocean, were basking in the waning day's warm hues. I saw Haider slowing his run to a steady-paced walk in the distance. "Haider!" I shouted. He heard and turned around to face me. I waved my hand at him and he reciprocated. "Hey," he called out, "I'm glad you came." I was glad too, I told him. I was enjoying the sunset and the sea. Soon I was walking alongside him. Haider's skin was glowing red in the setting sun. "I spent last summer in Singapore for an internship at the NUS, the National University of Singapore," he told me. It was a rather dark period of my life. I was severely overweight and barely sleeping at night. When I got to Singapore, I thought to myself, here I am far from home. It is time I pieced my life back together. And so I started getting up at 4 a.m. every day to run. The air was humid over there and breathing was hard. The first day I ran 100 meters and was exhausted for days. But then I started running 200, 500, 1 kilometer, 5 kilometers. I lost 30 kilos by the end of the summer. I haven't been able to run since that time though because I did what runners sneeze. A gentle breeze from the ocean blew our way as a rare seagull flew past us, gliding gently above the water. "I miss those running days," he continued. "And I miss the sea, which I haven't seen since Singapore last year. I grew up by the sea in Kuwait, and it was such a familiar sight." He paused a little and then continued. "You know, it's nice to live at home. I love my mom and my dad too. I love my 2 sisters dearly and will defend them with my life. But the solitude of traveling brings something else. It makes you crave something new, something foreign, something extraordinary." Haider stopped in his tracks and turned the whole torso towards me. "I've been observing you for the past few weeks. How you talk, how you walk, how you interact with others. And I've been wondering about you. Are you happy? What will make you happy?" Could that have come out as creepy? Perhaps to other girls, but in that moment I knew he was genuine. I stood still and held my breath. "Liz, can I make you happy?" Haider extended his hand out for me to hold. I stood between Haider and the sea. As time came to a standstill, something in the atmosphere changed imperceptibly, as if we were crossing the thin threshold between one world and the next. I looked at Haider, his hand in midair and his face bleeding. I glanced back at the sea, deep and impenetrable. There was only one thing to do at this point. At this moment, that made sense. I hesitated and went for it, oblivious to consequences and repercussions. I reached out my hand to his, and his large palm grasped my slim fingers in a firm and warm grip. In an instant, my whole life tumbled and turned them through its head irreversibly. How we got from the edge of the world back to the beach where the 5 of us hung out earlier was a blur. By the time we got there, the sun had set, and we found our sandals half buried in the sand, without any trace of our bags or his guitar. Perhaps the 3 others took everything back this time. We made our way to the Flying Pigs hostel in the sunny darkness and found the lobby full of young people sitting around and laughing, doing what drunk young people do. "Hey guys," Wendy shouted as she saw us from the window. "Apparently Will has won the bet." "What bet?" Haider and I asked in unison as we entered the front door. We exchanged quizzical glances. "He said that you guys were going to come back holding hands. Honestly, we all thought so too." So that's the first part. The second passage I want to bring to your attention shows the other side. So Liz and Haider have gotten together and they just dated. They had their first date in their own way in the home. He made her a meal and they just had their first kiss. "I love you, Liz," Haider said as we both opened our eyes. I felt a flicker of fear inside. That was way too fast. What did this mean? What did his love entail? What did he want from me? I still barely knew him at all. "Liz, let's go in your room and let me hug you." We both walked into my room, closed the door, and sat on a cheap IKEA twin bed that looked fit for a child. Was I ready for this? What was I getting myself into? Naturally, he could see the apprehension on my face. "Are you alright, Liz?" I felt empty inside. This talk of love frightened me. Chris flashed into my mind. How desperately I wanted him to love me, and yet as Haider's love was so freely given to me after such a short time, here I was, recoiling and unwilling to accept it. What did I really want? I was enthralled by him, of course I was, but I'd also just come down from a barrage of milestones as change has hit me from every side. Finishing my first year of college, losing my virginity, moving out of my parents' house for the first time, it was also overwhelming. It was all happening so fast. I was torn between wanting to slow down to catch my breath and wanting to give everything a try since I knew I only had one summer here with him. But it wasn't just that. It then dawned on me that giving up my childhood music dream, which had meant the world to me, followed by resigning myself unhappily to math and physics, had turned me into what felt almost like an empty carcass. An empty carcass who was lost and only trying to find its way home. But how did I tell him? I wanted to seize this love, this kindness he was offering me. I recognized the preciousness of having someone genuinely care about you, of being allowed to open up, to be heard, to be understood. And I needed that, I realized. I took a few seconds to gather my thoughts, but they never truly said. I guess I could sense the concern on his face, which gave me the confidence to finally speak. I've been hurting inside for years, I began. I trailed off, not knowing where to go from there. Pain, from how my parents never understood me, from how the world is indifferent to what I want and how I feel. From Chris, who rejected me. I put on a happy face in front of people, but that's not the truth. My thoughts drifted back to my old life, back in Montreal. Since my teenage years, I'd become the dark, cynical one in my friend group, who wore all black and had long hair with long, thick emo bangs that obscured my eyebrows. It was almost as if I was hiding from the world, and perhaps from myself as well. I'd been using this trip so far as an opportunity to try on a different life, like I would a new outfit at a store. An outfit that was not my usual style, but spoke to me somehow. I now found myself at crossroads. This bubbly persona I'd been taking on lately had been so embedded that I was now confused as to who I really was. Was this who I wanted to become permanently? What would make me happy? You have to be kind to yourself, Peter said, as if he was reading my mind. But how? The only thing I know how to do is hurt myself further to distract myself from the pain I already felt. I'm a stranger to the kind of love you talk about. Maybe I had been so enamored with Chris because he gave me the only type of love that I thought I deserved. A love so cold and distant and conditional that it didn't feel really like love. Peter looked concerned. He looked at me, hesitated, and finally spoke. I've seen some marks on your legs. Were these done by you? My heart sank. He hadn't even seen the scar on my chest above my breast or along my upper arms or just below my ribs. The third excerpt I wanted to read is from the second half. So Liz and Haider have moved back to Canada after their summer internship ended. So Liz is now in Montreal and Haider went back to Toronto where he studies. And as time went by, things got rocky because, family involvement, cultural clash, they were trying to transplant each other into each other's lives before, and it wasn't working. At some point, Liz, fed up, took a night bus to Toronto to break up with Haider. And then Haider picked her up at the bus stop at 3 a.m. and he talked her out of it. And he thoughtfully invited her to stay with his family for a few days. And one thing though is that his mother and sisters knew what was up, but his father did not, because otherwise drama. So, as we got off the bus, we arrived in a typical suburban neighborhood where the houses all looked the same. We walked deep into the residential area where roads were mostly dead ends and cul-de-sac. We passed by a children's playground where 2 young girls in hijab were sitting on swings and arrived in front of a semi-detached house. How plain it looked, I thought, though it housed a family with such a storied past. Welcome to my house, Haider said. Haider opened the door and we were greeted by his mother, father, and 2 sisters. Welcome, Haider's father said. His face looked very genuine to me. Come in, we were just having breakfast, his mother said. I took off my shoes at the door and walked in. The entire house was painted in pale green, and the floors were cheap vinyl tiles. A sign faced the entrance. In this house we trust God. On the living room wall was a large tapestry picturing Mecca. I felt like I was in India a few decades back in time. Please sit down at the table, Didi, the older sister said, with an air of formality reminiscent of a time gone by. We will serve you tea and naan. She was wearing a flowy salwar kameez like the last time I saw her. She looked slightly haggard, like she could have passed for Haider's mother, but I only saw benevolence in her eyes. I sat at the table and they offered me tea in a saucer and a plate of their flatbread. This is authentic brown style, Haider chuckled. I tasted the tea. It was heavenly, smooth and strong. It's not too strong, is it? His mother asked. We put a large handful of tea leaves and boil everything with milk. That's not how Chinese people drink tea, is it? It's not, but I really like the Indian way. She smiled. I copied Haider and broke a piece of the naan with my hand, dipping it into the tea. I almost felt like we were back in our Greensburg home. You study physics? Haider's father asked. Smart girl. He smiled and I smiled back. Where was the hostility Haider had warned me about, I wondered? I wanted to believe that his family was truly sincere. You must be tired from spending the night outside, Haider's mother said. Do you want to lay down and take a nap? I nodded. She took me upstairs and showed me to her bedroom. The bed was gigantic in wrought iron. She pushed the covers to one side. Here, lay down here, she told me. I felt incredulous. I was a stranger. Was I to sleep in the master bedroom in Haider's parents' bed? I was amazed at their generosity. I lay down and shut my eyes. The mother left the door ajar as she exited the room. Could it be that they were genuinely kind to me? I wondered. Perhaps this family really cared about me, I thought. Perhaps there was hope for Haider and me. The door opened and a man walked in. In the semi-darkness of closed curtains, I thought Haider had come in. Then a deep voice asked, Are you cold? Do you want me to close the window? It was Haider's father. Pa, I want to say, you are so kind. Your son is just like you. I love him. But I bit my tongue. Yes, it's a bit cold. Thanks for closing the window, I uttered. He closed the window, smiled at me, and left the room. I was in disbelief. Could this kindly man really be against Haider and me? Did he really despise us, as Haider had insinuated? I must have fallen asleep, for I was woken up by Haider's mother and Didi coming into the room. Haider told us you didn't pack clothing when you came here, mother said. I work as Sears in the retail department, so after work I bought some clothing for you. We're not sure of your size, so check what fits and keep it. I was taken aback. How thoughtful of them. My mind flashed to the time when I went back to China and my aunt and my grandma insisted on buying me a full suitcase of clothing. I looked at Didi and Haider's mother. Hospitality was the same around the world, I thought. They felt like family to me. You can try out the clothes in the walk-in closet over there, Didi said. I opened the bag and examined the booty. It was cheap clothing, mostly neon colors. I laughed. These were exactly the kind of clothing my extended family in China would buy me against my will. How did I explain that I didn't wear things like that? But I couldn't explain it. The least I could do was be grateful for their generosity. The pants didn't fit, to my relief. I kept the yellow t-shirt, a white blouse, and some underwear. I liked that the neon pink shirt didn't fit either, and I kept my socks. I'm so grateful for everything you have done to help me, I told Haider's mother when she came back. Do you love my son? She asked, looking me dead in the eye. My stomach was in the mouth. I wasn't ready to answer this question to her. I barely knew what love meant anymore. Yes, I answered. There was nothing else to say. Then you're family to us. Call me Ma from now on.
Nice.
And one last part. So here, sadly, Haider had to let go of Liz because he wasn't working, and Liz ended up spiraling downward from there on. She tried to convert to Islam to hold on to what she had with Haider, then she started having a mental breakdown. Here, she's seeing a psychiatrist at the McGill Clinic, and the psychiatrist says, I'm afraid I have to send you to the emergency room. No, I will not go. If you don't go willingly, I will make you go. There was a sternness in her voice. I panicked. Please don't make me go, please. I was crying and frantic. You have to, my dear. It will be for your own good, she urged. She gave me an hour to go back home and pack my things and ordered a cab to pick me up. On my way home, I cried and cried. You will be taken care of, my dad tried to reassure me. It's better this way. There is no other way, my mom said when we got home. You will be okay. I don't want to go to the emergency psych ward. I'm not crazy. I swear I'm not crazy, I cried out. I was lucid about the fact I was going crazy. Oh wait. My mom was crying with me. Liz, let's go. The cab is here, she said. I gathered my Quran and my toothbrush and headed out. My mom and I got into the cab and she gave the driver directions. I kept sobbing on the back seat. Oh Allah, he whispered. Oh Allah, help me. This is as low as it can get. What more do you want from me? The cab dropped us off at the emergency room of the Royal Victoria Hospital. We walked inside and my mom registered at the front desk by the door. They told us to wait until my name was called. I stood aloof, lost in the hallway. About 20 people sat in the waiting room, bored out of their minds. Half of them were looking at me, wondering what had overcome this crazy girl. I kept looking at the tiled floor, and little by little, the tiles started waving around and dancing like one of those old Dance Dance Revolution arcade games. They'd light up one by one, and I had to step on the right ones. I pranced around, trying to keep afloat in a sea of tiles. Elizabeth, I faintly heard my name called in the distance. Liz, my mom said to me, they're calling you to go to their office. She gently pushed me towards the office at the end of the hallway. Elizabeth, the nurse asked me, what's wrong? I was mute. I tried to move my hand and it didn't move at all. Liz, tell us so we can help you, she asked again. Suddenly my thumb was out of control. It was moving and moving like a little mouse having a seizure. I panicked. I shrieked a deafening shriek. I'm afraid we have to use the hard way, she muttered. The hospital bed was wheeled towards me. I saw restraints on it, the kind they used to tie people up. I shrieked again and again and again as if pushed into death throes. A team of nurses came and started tying me on the bed. I screamed again and suddenly I felt my heart wake up. Everything makes sense now. The nurses wheeled me deep inside the belly of the hospital, away from my crying mother. No, this is not the end. This is just the beginning. Memories flooded my mind. I saw Louisville. I saw the Netherlands beach. I saw our Volksstrasse at home. I saw our life together. I saw us falling apart. I saw my wandering alone. I saw how in my eyes, Haider went from being that corny, cheesy, love-struck stranger to the hard-working, overachieving winner at everything he touches, to the life-sacrificing, life-giving paragon of love. Never again could I judge a book by its cover. I have looked into someone else's eyes. I have tasted true love. I have tasted life. I have grown. I have lived. My heart has been open to the world like never before. Everything that happened was meant to happen. God willed it, and I'm seeing everything with new eyes. The nurses wheeled me into a darker room and started removing my clothes one article at a time. It's going to be okay, I told myself, as long as my mother doesn't see me like this. I was slowly being stripped of everything. I have nothing to hide. I'm beautiful. I'm strong, and I'm kind. I will survive and thrive. I have not loved in vain. Poor girl, a senior nurse muttered, compassion in her eyes. I wish we didn't have to do this to her. I'm all right, I answered inside. Don't you worry about me. This is just the beginning of my life, and I'm ready for my future. Life finally makes sense now, and it is beautiful. What a beautiful world we live in. I felt gratitude, immense gratitude. My heart has been filled with love to the brim. It is time I give back to the world now. Haider wanted to be remembered for how much he loved me, and I will honor him. I will honor his wish. I will study. I will work hard. I will give everything my best from now on. I will change the world. I have learned how to bow down and how to stand up at the same time. Never again will I be lost and broken. The nurses dressed me in a blue hospital gown that was open in the back. Encountering him has freed me to be everything I could ever dream to be. He has taught me that I was loved, that I mattered, always and no matter what. And I have in turn fallen in love with the whole world. I will live, I will thrive. It's just the beginning of my life. And I have so much to give to this world. Alhamdulillah, praise be to God, love triumphs. I repeated myself as they began injecting these tranquilizers. Love triumphs. I felt an immense cold rush to my vein, and the world started drifting apart.
What do you want people to retain? A love story, or is it something else?
So, a little bit of both. Both are things, you know. Love, definitely, but also a lot of pain, a lot of mental anguish, and frankly, a breakdown. But I think ultimately, it is a story about growing up. It's a coming-of-age story. It's about, you know, figuring yourself out, figuring out the world, and really make sense of the world we live in. So, yeah, so it's just growing up and everything that entails, you know.
That's what you'd like people to retain. So this is, she read us the end, okay, so read it. So she went to the end. You know, that's great. This is your first book, eh? You said it. When she said it's the first novel, it's the first book, eh? So does that entail what's next? What's coming? Where do you go from here?
Well, I am thinking of a second project. It's a little too soon to talk about it, but I would love to write one.
Mm-hmm. And how about the Liz in the story?
Well,
are you going to leave her at that? Because at the end, you know, like, is that where you're going to leave her for now, for us?
For now, yeah.
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 Thank you. So you're not going to tell us anything about your second project?
It's going to be a different project. And frankly, I was lucky with this first book. I had the idea fully formed arriving to me. I'm not going to have that luck for the second book. So I have to figure something out.
Inspiration, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd like to open up the floor now. Did you get any questions in, Phil?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay, so maybe we can open it up to the floor here and let people, if you have any questions for our author.
I'm so fascinated by how a story gets crafted. So you mentioned a very close friend over the pandemic was doing Sunday editing sessions.
and that it was so helpful. Did the structure or the shape of the story change after editing, or did only the form of it, meaning on the level of the sentence, the vocabulary? What was different pre and post the big edit?
Yeah, so I mean, a little bit between the two that you mentioned. So no, she did not like restructure the story because I think my story was pretty good to start, so like it was fine. But I mean, she really helped me clarify things. She asked a lot of like really interesting questions. You know, what did you mean by that? Or like, you know, can you elaborate on this because this is interesting? Or she gave me really those kind of help, and I realized that, you know, I had to add a lot more explanation in some places, take out some stuff elsewhere, but mostly adding, I would say. And basically, it really helped me see the story from a different pair of eyes, right? Who doesn't see inside my head, right? So yeah, so I think she helped me like flesh out a lot. Yeah.
I'm wondering, you talked about your own mental health journey. How much do the events in the story reflect your own experience that led up to your breakdown?
Good question.
You said it's fictionalized, so I'm wondering if there are parallels.
So, you know, it's even hard for me to answer this question because even if I was trying to write everything that did happen to me, right? I mean, memory distorts things, right? Like, just thinking about it over time, you know, you might realize that, you know, like, what really happened, and like, if someone else went through the same thing, they might write a completely different book. So, yeah, and I wasn't trying to write exactly as things happened, obviously, so, but something actually a little disturbing happened, which is that later on, after writing the book, I realized that, wait, now I think of the stuff that really happened to me as the characters in the book. I'm starting to confuse the two, and that's kind of scary. Yeah?
I was wondering, like, by the end of the book, I always got the sense as the reader that like the voice of Liz was very apologetic about Haider, but I was wondering if there was a sense of resentment there, kind of hidden underneath all of the, well, yeah, kind of, I don't want to say excuses, but I can't think of a better word. And whether there's like an element of blame also is laid, like where does the blame lie between Haider and Liz? And
yeah, well, it's a good question. I can answer you from my personal experience, which is that I honestly don't think anyone can be to blame for, like, especially like a mental health breakdown like that. Like, nobody is really at fault, you know? Like, things happen a certain way. It's really the interaction, and also I think there might be like a physiological, biological component to it too. So in the end, I don't think anyone is really like to blame, like, oh, you know, it's because of that person who did such and such that caused, you know, all this drama and stuff, right? So you can't really say that. So, I mean, Liz is also trying to look on the bright side, obviously, because, you know, if she doesn't even try to do that, I don't think whether she can survive. So, and personally, I think, you know, like, I think I'm still grateful despite having gone through like a mental health breakdown. And I feel like I don't blame anyone, not even myself, really. I just think, you know, like, I guess things happen a certain way, and I feel like I've always been a little bit on the weirder side. So maybe it was always bound to happen. I don't know, you know. Yeah.
And then kind of take off on this question about resentment. Like, Liz went through so many things, like, emotionally through the relationship, but do you think she ever felt some kind of resentment? Like, why did I suffer so much? Why did I have to go through this? Like, in the end, she finds something positive. But does she ever feel like some kind of conflict? Like, I found something good, but man, did I suffer.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't show that face of Liz, and honestly, I could have. But I think she's trying to hold on to something. Because if she was resentful, I don't know how she could have really survived, you know. So she was just trying to hold on to something positive and say, you know, like, no, I'm going to do this. I am going to do this. Because what choice does she have at that point? You know, if she doesn't do it, you know, like, maybe she'll just give up, and God knows where that leaves us, you know.
I think that's life.
Yeah.
So since you're not going to read the second book about Eve, did you ever imagine what happened to Eve after the box was lost?
You don't want to know.
There was an ending, like if you, because you purposely left it open-ended.
So I read the last chapter, but there is a prologue that explains that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we got a comment from online, David Bourgeois, who wrote Full Fathom 5 last year. And he apologized he couldn't make it. He says, congratulations on the novel. The prose style in the final excerpt does a wonderful job evoking Liz's manic psychological state as she was admitted to the hospital. Dramatic and exciting, from David Bourgeois, who's a very accomplished writer and professor of, a teacher of English literature at John Abbott College. So,
Yeah, well, thank him. Thank him for me.
I had one question.
Yeah.
As you're writing, I mean, you're writing based quite a bit on your own story. Did Liz start taking on a life of her own?
A little bit, actually.
In other words, like were you tempted to just go somewhere else, or with Liz, with the character?
I would say not really, because I had a plan and I was going to stick to it. Because if I did not stick to it, I don't know where I would have gone. But also, I think, in a way, yeah. I mean, she's not exactly like me. You know, I feel like she's more daring, more outgoing, more just like going out there than even I would say I am. And she's also trying to make sense of it. I'm looking back from like many years of experience and, you know, trying to see that. So, yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah.
So in this book, a lot of yourself is exposed. What are your feelings around that? What are your feelings in like day-to-day life, that sort of thing? And if there's a difference, why is there a difference?
Well, it is scary, right? I mean, I wouldn't say that it's exactly my life, because it's not. But obviously, all the details have their origin somewhere. So yes, it does feel kind of exposing, but I don't know. Some people are more averse to like exposing themselves than others, and I would say that in my case, I kind of find it's a kind of like performance art, even if you think about it, you know. And I don't know. I feel like I have a good story. Why wouldn't I tell it, right?
You mentioned that Liz differs from you in some ways, key ways, like she's very daring, she seizes upon that. As a writer, how, when sort of basing something around like your own story, do you sort of fight the temptation to almost make this character an idealized version of yourself? You know, like an airbrushed version of who you could have been in those days.
It is airbrushed. It is. You know, it's not like I'm writing her to be a perfect character, but I'm writing her to be maybe more a stereotype than I would be personally, right? So it is airbrushed, but not necessarily made perfect. I would say. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I noticed during the interview you said that you were very professional writer, but as an outsider, you mentioned about a professional writer. So, how do you define that between being a writer and a professional writer?
Well, you know, I'm not sure even there's a line somewhere. So,
You have a book now.
You are a writer. That's
yeah, I mean, but when I was writing, I definitely did not consider myself to be a professional writer, because you know, I hadn't published anything. I write for myself. I journal a lot, but you know, it's not. I wrote a couple stories, but nothing publishable. So, but at this point, I guess I'm a writer now. Something's published, I guess, you know, like. Right, so, but I don't think there's a moment where I'm like, now I'm a writer. I don't think it happened.
You mentioned journaling. It does take on that aspect when you're reading and you see the dates going by. So I was wondering when I was reading it, did it come? Did some of these parts come from a journal?
No, at the time I wasn't keeping a journal, but I was keeping track of things on my calendar anyway, so like a lot of things that actually happened, I have the calendar reference. I know, like it's not the real date for many things, but yeah, I did have like a calendar of things in my head. I realized, like, yeah, the timeline should be here. It helped me plan the story actually, because I could see when things were happening in the story. So it helped me structure it, and I thought, why not just keep it? I like the dates. It gives people some reference. They can think about their own lives at that time. I think it's interesting.
More questions? So, once again, can I ask you
It's a pleasure to publish your book. It was a pleasure to read your book and to get to know you and of course your family. And for those, some people who know the Netherlands know the beaches outside of on the North Sea, Scheveningen and a few places like that. You really felt you were there when she tells that story. You feel like you're there, and so that's a sign of a writer who really knows how to make you feel that you're traveling with it, and so on. And so that's it. Thank you very much for coming. I just want to mention Blossom was you couldn't replace her, but tomorrow we're going to announce the nomination, the appointment of Leah Marché as the new fiction editor at Baraka Books, and we'll be going out. And very accomplished editor, good in promotion and everything. And here is Melissa Bow, who is our fiction editor at QC Fiction, which is an imprint of Quebec literature and translation into English. And she's also a very skilled translator, and the book we have here is Morel, we have to say it in English, right? And it came out in English, she translated, it was a real challenge, and we launched it last week here. So anyway, so we're growing slowly after 15 years. Anyway, thank you very much, and thank you very much, Andrea, for asking the questions, reading the book, and encouraging Lili with your questions. So anyway, enjoy. There's some wine, mineral water, and some finger food as well. Have a good evening.